It was a day late, but Miami found an unexpected gift under the Christmas tree. No Jimmy Butler, no Bam Adebayo, but the Heat managed to hang on for a much-needed win at home thanks to some big performances from Max Strus, Duncan, and Orlando Robinson. Can the rookie center become a regular part of the rotation? We answer that and more listener questions and break down the game on today's Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat. I'm Wes Goldberg here with David Ramil. However you might be tuning in on YouTube, Odyssey, or on your favorite podcast app, thank you for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. That's prizepicks.com, promo code LOCKEDON. No Jimmy Butler or Bam Adebayo, and the Miami Heat needed multiple guys to step up to beat the Timberwolves on Monday night, and that is exactly what happened. 5 players scoring in double digits, the Heat forcing 22 turnovers, and a clutch shot by Tyler Herro is how the Heat beat the Timberwolves 113-110. This win brings the Heat back to 500 at 17-17 and gives them a chance to salvage this 4-game homestand. But that clutch shot to put the Heat up 5 with 30 seconds left, a paintball trigger for Tyler Herro and the Heat. We're going to break down how the shorthanded Heat ended up winning this game, but everything leading up to that and all that kind of stuff. But to go back to the shot, David, what did you think of Tyler Herro there?
A little premature in the Pepas, I'll tell you that much. Like from there, it wound up leading to Kyle Lowry drawing a very dubious blocking foul. I think it was the right call. You and I talked about it before we started recording. He was positioned outside of the restricted area circle there, but Anthony Edwards had flown up towards the rim, and he was already in midair, having released the shot already, went crashing into Kyle Lowry, who drew the contact, but it was the right call. But if Anthony Edwards doesn't miss that free throw, all of a sudden the gap goes from 5 points to 2. But still, it was enough for Miami to hold on. But as far as the shot is concerned, look, Tyler, after that incredible stretch he had just a few weeks ago, we were just talking about him being an all-star. He was incredible from three-point range. It looked like he couldn't miss for a handful of games there. He's been struggling with the three-point shot ever since. Tonight, he was 0 of 8 from the three-point line, right? So he was really, really bad. And a lot of those shots completely mistimed. Like he was missing not just the rim, but almost the backboard on some occasions. They were just sailing right or left. Just didn't seem to have his placement there. I'm not sure if he's hurt or something along those lines, but very atypical of him to be missing those shots as completely as he did. But this is what Tyler does, right? In the fourth quarter, this is a player who wants the ball in his hands. We've heard it from Spoelstra on many occasions. There are many players on this roster who want the ball when the game is on the line, when they want that big shot. We've seen Tyler hit those throughout his whole career, and this was just more evidence of him being that kind of shot taker. Miami, every team in the NBA needs somebody like that who's willing to take the shot. No matter how many times you missed before, this is evidence that Tyler has that willingness, that he has that star-level quality. If not the consistency that we might like from him, I think you could at the very least say that willingness is what separates him from almost anybody else on this roster.
Our friend Steve Kolakidis writes in, Tyler missing open threes all night, finally hits one, falling out of the corner slightly behind the basket. Frustrating night, but damn, he is a star. Look, I think you would prefer that your best scorer or one of your best scorers, your best scorer available, certainly, in Tyler Herro,
sure,
not miss his first 8 3-pointers. And this, it was initially ruled a 3. It was called back as a 2-pointer. But you would prefer that didn't happen, that he wasn't struggling so much with his shot. Although Tyler Herro played a great floor game, and I tweeted it during the game, and I'll keep saying it. The area that he has grown the most is the playmaking. He has become such a better playmaker, floor general kind of guy, reading and taking what the defense gives him. And yeah, some of those shots were rushed. I'm with you on that. Also, it was just a clunky night overall. I felt like they really missed Bam Adebayo tonight, and just the way that Bam is able to facilitate in the high post and from that triple threat spot with the dribble handoffs and all that kind of stuff. We'll get to Orlando Robinson. Sure, he helps a little bit in that regard, but nobody is Bam there. And I thought they really missed those those early triggers in their offense. And instead, what ended up happening, it was just a lot of whenever they couldn't get those high pace, fast break off turnover opportunities, their half court offense was just sort of swing, Tyler Herro, step back, Victor Oladipo, chuck it from 3-point range. Those were kind of all their shots in the half court. So the fact that Tyler Herro was able to get that shot off and make it, and that was such a tough look, man. That's going to be a highlight going around all night long.
Toughest one all night that he took by far.
And the fact that he's able to get that in that clutch moment in that way, it is just further proof that Tyler Herro is starting to turn into that kind of player. Again, you don't want him to miss all the shots and then sort of prove, hey, I can make that shot. You would rather you just make all the shots. But the fact that you can make the most out of what had been a tough shooting night for you and hit the most important shot of the night, that's all that counts. And you can ask Eric Spoelstra, you can ask anybody, hey, as long as you just hit the ones that really count at the end when you really need them, we're going to be happy as long as we come away with the W. And that's what happened.
To that point, I do think that it's worth noting that Tyler did seem much more patient in terms of what you were saying, like as far as reading the floor much more effectively. There was a lot more, I think, just in retrospect and kind of looking back at the game, kind of him probing a lot more, trying to find those soft spots in the defense. He was able to get to that floater over Rudy Gobert, knowing that big body was taking up a lot of that space in the paint whenever that three-point shot wasn't falling consistently. And again, to your point, he was rushing a few of those. I think part of it was also him just trying to see, maybe if I knock down this one, that'll kickstart the next 3 or 4, because we've seen that from Tyler on occasion. But when the three-point shot wasn't falling, he said, you know what, let me go ahead and attack the paint, see if I can pull up for that jumper as consistently as it's fallen all season long. And if not, attack the paint, see if he could get that floater over a big body there, whether it was Naz Reid or Rudy Gobert or anybody else. And I think he did that pretty effectively.
The Heat played in their first 18 clutch games. The Heat were 9-9 after their first 18 clutch games. They are 4-1 in clutch games since then, including tonight. They're figuring it out, right? Like, yeah. I'm not going to go out on a limb and say that the Heat have turned their season around and are at the place where they want to be. The injuries are still a really big deal. It just seems like it's one thing after another. It was Jimmy Butler's stomach the other night. Now it's his ankle. It was the knee before all of that, and it's one thing after another. Bam Adebayo, the non-COVID illness, whatever that means. I don't really know what the nature of that illness is, but you finally get guys like Gabe Vincent and Victor Oladipo back for sure, but it just seems like it's one injury after the other, and there's plenty of other things that are issues for the Heat. But the fact that they are starting to just figure out ways to win in these clutch games is something to hang your hat on, I guess, if you're the Miami Heat. But going back to how the Heat got to even the point where they could be a Tyler Herro dagger from winning this thing, I thought the way that they came into this game with the emphasis on pace was really smart, understanding that the Timberwolves with Rudy Gobert at center, no Karl Anthony Towns, so the Timberwolves still out for an extended amount of time for them. But given that they're going to play big and D'Angelo Russell's going to just want to run pick and roll and slow the game down and stuff like that, they knew, hey, if we could just find opportunities to push the pace, we're going to be able to get a lot of easy points. And if we could remove Rudy Gobert from defensive possessions altogether, that's going to be even better for us because our half-court offense struggles as is already, not on nights when we don't have to face Rudy Gobert in a half-court set. So I thought they did a really good job of that, specifically even off of Minnesota makes. Like multiple times, Kyle Lowry just getting that inbound, clapping for the ball, and just launching to a streaking Max Strus or Caleb Martin or whoever. I thought they did a really nice job of finding pockets of the game and opportunities on certain possessions where they could just push the pace, take Gobert out of the play, and find advantages despite being shorthanded.
Yeah, I think, part of that was electing to start Nikola Jovic. You had told me that maybe you thought they would go with Haywood Highsmith or a smaller lineup there, but they elected to go with the only center-sized player there, aside from Orlando Robinson, who's still very young in his career. Obviously, it's strange that you consider whether we should start the 19-year-old or the 22-year-old with very little game experience, but they elected to go with Jovic. I think in part because his passing and his, in theory, ability to shoot from the perimeter would at least draw Gobert out of the paint. That really wasn't the case because he wasn't able to hit from beyond the arc, unfortunately. But still, I think that was a big part of it. But yes, kicking ahead, looking for those three-point shots, getting those good looks early on, trying to keep Minnesota from settling into their defense early on. I think that was effective. I don't know that that's something they would have been able to do if Jimmy Butler or Bam Adebayo were in the game, just because, well, with Bam maybe, because Bam is a little bit more prone, or at least likely, to engage in some more of that fast-paced type action. But Jimmy, a little bit more settled, more measured in his approach. Even though he does like the look ahead or the kick ahead, I think he's much more likely to just inbound the ball, walk it up slowly, see if he can find those seams of the defense, because he's so good at attacking and getting to the rim, drawing fouls and things of that sort.
This game looks, to your point, this game looks a lot different if Jimmy Butler is in it. But I would also venture to say that the Timberwolves don't shoot 54% if Jimmy Butler is there playing defense either. So,
you know, he's not stopping Naz Reid, and he was a killer all night.
Nobody is stopping Naz Reid. Nobody stops Naz Reid. He's on my fantasy team. Nobody better be stopping Naz Reid. Keep putting those points up. Should be also noted that the bench, we're going to get into that in credit cookies, outscored Minnesota's bench 45-32. And then overall, look, Minnesota played really bad. We could say that the Heat forced 22 turnovers. I'd say they probably forced maybe half of those. There was a lot of turnovers where Minnesota was just like, we don't want this ball anymore. You take it. It's a mess right now for the Timberwolves, man. That's a game that you should win if you're Minnesota. You're going into a struggling Miami team without two of their best players with rest. I don't know, man. That whatever. So chalk it up to also Minnesota playing poorly. But at the end of the day, the Heat came into this game shorthanded, needing a win, being 0-2 on this 4-game homestand. They need to salvage this one with a win tonight and possibly on Wednesday against the Lakers. That's what they did. They got the job done. It was not pretty, but it doesn't matter. When you're shorthanded like that, it doesn't matter how it looks. You just try to escape with the win. That's what happened. Credit cookies is next.
No, I was going to say, I think that's the point, right? I mean, you have to find a way to win. You need these wins, not just to get back to 500, to continue to build some kind of stability at home before you go on this long road trip to kick off the new year and things of that sort. So absolutely necessary for them to do it. Shorthanded or not, it doesn't matter. You find ways to step up, and they got a number of players that did so tonight. We will talk about them in the next segment.
Yep. But first, let's hear about our sponsor.
Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Tonight, I'm taking Luka Doncic to score more than 26.5 points, LeBron James to have more than 7.5 rebounds, Kevin Durant to have less than 6.5 assists, and Steph Curry to have more than 3.5 3-pointers made. That's all it takes when it comes to PrizePicks. It's so easy to make entries. You just basically pick 2 to 6 players, and if they will score more or less than their PrizePicks projections, you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. You're not competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you watch, including the NBA, of course, the NFL, Major League Baseball, PGA, college football, men's college basketball, women's college basketball, of course, WNBA, and so much more. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. You can make safe and fast withdrawals, and they're currently operational in over 30 states in Canada. So download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter the promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100 by downloading the PrizePicks app or going to prizepicks.com.
Thank you for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. The biggest stories of the day, instant reactions, big game recaps, the take of the day. It's available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Well, it's a Heat win, which means it's time to get in the kitchen and whip up some credit cookies. David, what kind of cookies do we have whipped up tonight?
I didn't even think about it, to be honest with you. I was halfway through. I was in the kitchen baking up those cookies, and then it started switching to plain pie, and I was like, I got stuck. So basically, it's a really foul-tasting cookie, which is fine because that's kind of what the way the win was. Let's say it's a Christmassy cookie of some kind, but not a particularly good one. A little undercooked in some parts, a little overcooked in others, and not particularly good.
Like dollar store gingerbread cookie or something?
Yeah, but they've been open. Like the tin is open, and they're kind of stale.
It's the last one on the shelf, and you just, for some reason, you just needed them.
Expiration date 1984. I'm not sure if that's a good value or not.
All right, very good. Well, unfortunately, those are going to be the first batch of credit cookies that Orlando Robinson ever gets to taste. Let's start with him because we've sort of danced around the Orlando Robinson topic enough. We'll start with his box score line tonight. Orlando Robinson in 26 minutes, almost 27 minutes, 7 of 9 shooting overall for 15 points, 9 rebounds, 7 of which were offensive, 2 of which were defensive. One of the strangest rebounding lines that you'll see. Also had a steal in the game, and 4 assists. You mentioned earlier how he was able to kind of get into stuff above the on the high post, kind of doing some of those Bam Adebayo dribble handoff actions, and that led to 4 assists for him. But overall, Orlando Robinson, the thing that stuck out to me, not just the production, he had 10 points in his first 12 minutes, by the way, but just the physicality with which he played, the fact that without Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler, 2 of your most physical players on the roster, and that you're already a small team to begin with, a team, and I know that granted they were missing Karl Anthony Towns, but Rudy Gobert is a physical presence. So the fact that that was not a concern for Miami, a lot of credit to that goes to Orlando Robinson.
Yeah, I think it's well said. A couple fouls that went against Robinson, and one in particular where you could see Gobert holding Robinson's jersey and totally sold the contact. It was clear that he was the one fouling Robinson and not the other way around. But I just liked his overall feel for the game. He looked like a much better player. Like we had concerns about whether or not he'd be able to match the level of athleticism. He's not a particularly springy player, but he was able to hold his own. He found position well. He held position well. He's strong enough and just quick enough. Maybe it's against a slower center like Gobert. It might have just been the right matchup for him, size versus size, as opposed to size matching up with a smaller player. Like if it had been Bam on the other end of the equation, I don't know that Robinson holds his own so well because just Bam is such an explosive athlete at the center position. But against a guy like Gobert, I think he did a really good job of being able to match the level of physicality, use his size effectively, present himself as a big target in pick and roll situations, be able to time his leaps. Because again, he's not a great leaper, but he was really active in being able to find the right timing to pull down those rebounds and to get some necessary buckets. And a game, he wasn't, I didn't expect him to have this kind of production. When I saw that Bam Adebayo was going to miss due to an injury, I texted you. I said, "Oh, this is going to be an ugly night. Like, who plays center here other than Orlando Robinson? You're going to start UD again?" Either way, big night for him. Great performance and really stepping up at a night when Miami needed him to.
I'm going to go with 2 credit cookies here for him. I think that's a fair number considering how many more we have to get to. The other one that we got to talk about is Max Strus, and this is big. 19 points, led the team, 7 of 12 shooting overall, 5 of 10 from three-point range. They needed those threes. It was a struggle early on. Duncan Robinson also got going. He went 3 or 5 from three-point range. This was for Max Strus. This was the one that hopefully the night that breaks him out of this basically month-long shooting slump that he's been in. It's the most threes that he's made since that night in Boston. Look, they needed the points. No other way to say it. Max Strus, 5 of 10 from three-point range. I think he gets 2 credit cookies.
I might even give him a third just because he was so vital to, nobody else was hitting the 3 at all. It was him, Duncan Robinson. Aside from that, nobody else was really able to hit either Gabe Vincent or Tyler Herro. Kyle with a couple of threes, but overall.
You mean you didn't love the Victor Oladipo step back threes with 5 seconds into the shot clock? You didn't love those tonight?
Those weren't great, no, especially when they're not falling. I like it when they're falling, but I'm not a big fan when they're not. Look, Max, you could see he took a shot early on, and it was really comfortable. The net barely moved, and you're thinking to yourself, at least I did. I saw that, I was like, maybe he's got a little bit of that juju going. And he was clearly looking for a shot. He felt much more comfortable. No hesitation from him, no hitch in his shot or anything like that. Sometimes that's just what it needs for a shooter. Ignitable. That's the word I was looking for. We've heard that before, and Max Strus certainly caught fire tonight. Big night for him, and hopefully, again, as you said, breaking the ice here and getting him started on a much, it's much needed, especially when they go into a game against the Lakers on Wednesday.
We've already covered the Kyle Lowry topic, just how well he did pushing the pace and all that stuff, but also scored 18 points. Went at 8-16 overall, too. So he was awesome all night. Defensively, he was great. Without Jimmy Butler and without Bam Adebayo, his table setting, I thought was really important, even in those half-court sets, not even when he's pushing the pace and getting those fast break chances. We got to give 2 to him as well. And then for Tyler Herro, the big question is, he didn't have a great shooting night, but he did have 8 assists. Kyle Lowry had 9 assists. He made the most important shot of the game. Like, how many cookies is that worth? Is it fair to give him 2?
Yeah. Does that leave any for Duncan Robinson?
It does. If we give Strus 2 instead of 3, then we have 1 for Duncan and 1 for Gabe. Gabe Vincent, 11 points off the bench. With nothing spectacular from Gabe Vincent, but hey, he played for the first time in 10 games. So it feels like the right thing to do. So if we give one to Gabe and one to Duncan, two each to Strus, Tyler, Kyle Lowry, and Orlando Robinson, is that fair?
Yeah, that is fair. I just want to make a point about Kyle because it's so interesting. This weekend, of course, celebrating Christmas Eve with family members, and as you know, as families are wont to do, sometimes they start talking about sports, and of course, they start asking me questions about basketball. And a relative of mine said, "Oh, as long as we get rid of Kyle Lowry, I don't care what happens with the season." And it's so bizarre to me that people can't appreciate what he does. And I know this is pretty rampant across the NBA with any level of fandom, but you see the contract number and you say to yourself, oh, he's getting paid so much money. You expect this kind of commensurate level of production where he's going to be putting in 30 points per game or having these overpowering nights. And to that, I say, perhaps you've never seen Kyle Lowry's career, Hall of Fame career, by the way, what led to a championship in Toronto. Tonight was the kind of big night where he is contributing at a high level without having that kind of gaudy level of production. He's just great on defense, making the right passes, finding the right players, making the right plays, hitting big shots. Like there were moments there where he knocked down a couple of threes really comfortably. Like I don't know what else you want from a 37-year-old point guard who's played more minutes than anybody else on this roster. So I think we should all learn to appreciate Kyle Lowry for what he does, rather than what he doesn't do.
Tonight was a great example of that too, because the other version of not having a point guard like Kyle Lowry who can set the table and get things organized, that team looks a lot like the Minnesota Timberwolves. Like the fact that, look, Rudy Gobert has never been a mismatch guy necessarily because he can't really create his own offense. But the fact that they never even really went to him on pick and rolls or lobs or anything like that, given how undersized and undermanned the Heat were, is borderline malpractice for an NBA team, for a point guard, for D'Angelo Russell and Anthony Edwards, who was entrusted with more of these playmaking duties this year. It was like you just can't do that in today's game. You have to find those mismatches when you have them in your favor, and they just didn't do it. So yeah, I would just submit that as evidence to anybody that says, hey, Kyle Lowry doesn't do anything for this team. Not having a guy like Kyle Lowry, you look really disorganized, and you look a lot like the Minnesota Timberwolves did. And make no mistake, the Timberwolves lost this game just as much as the Heat won this game.
And to that point, look how good Gabe looked as a real backup point guard for the first time. You're not entrusting Victor Oladipo or Tyler or anybody else to run the second offense. This is more a floor general, a guy who sees it and tries to get everybody going offensively. That was really effective. He had a really nice, solid performance. It's good to have those point guards. Even in today's NBA, you still need somebody who can set up the offense, slow things down, or pick up the pace as needed. They do the right thing. They make the right choice. That's why the ball is in their hands more often than not. So I think it's – go ahead.
No, I was just going to say a lot of Wolves Twitter tonight saying, hey, wouldn't it be nice if we could trade – like what would it take to swap D'Angelo Russell for Kyle Lowry? That was a lot of the conversation. Oof, I don't think that is a world Heat fans want to live in. Up next, why the Heat might be ready to shake up their front court rotation. That's coming up on Locked On Heat. But first, David, tell the listeners about our sponsor.
Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net, still your number one source for your sports betting information, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football to college bowl season to basketball. We've got it all at BetOnline.net. What the heck has happened to the Miami Dolphins? I know you don't want to talk about it, but I got to ask.
I don't want to talk about it. You were right the first time. I don't want to talk about it.
All right. If you love sports podcasts, you can even find those at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. Don't bet on the Dolphins, as any longtime fan can probably tell you. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts.
You can reach Locked On Heat on Twitter, Instagram, email us, lockedonheat@gmail.com. David, that was unnecessary. You did not have to. They've lost a winless December, as our friend Tobin likes to say. It was a Counting Crows December. It was a long December for the Miami Dolphins. And you're kind of taking the wind out of my sails after this Miami Heat win. But I'm going to try to get us back into the groove of things here. Talking about our friend Orlando Robinson. I admittedly sort of poo-pooed the idea after the last good Orlando Robinson game that he was ready to usurp Dwayne Dedmon as the team's backup center, primarily, full-time backup center. I said, hey, it was one game. Love that Orlando Robinson had it. I like his game overall. I think that he's got upside to a degree, and that maybe in the future he could be Miami's backup center. But to say it after one performance is just it's too overreactionary to me. Now it's been a couple of good performances. And I'm not sure I'm there all the way. You made a really good point at the top of the show there where we're talking about, hey, does it look this way if you're not playing against a plotting Minnesota team that doesn't really know what they're doing? It's a good question. It's a very good question. But we have seen enough from Orlando Robinson in terms of rebounding, being able to put up points in a valuable way, and just overall, like his positioning defensively, like he's a good, he's got good feel. There's a basketball IQ there that I think is worth tapping into, but I'm not sure I'm ready to have the full conversation of if Orlando Robinson has proved he could be the backup center. Are you?
I think it's worth considering because I just don't know what you're going to continue to get from Dwayne Dedmon moving forward. He's been problematic, and there's no way around it.
DNPs, maybe.
You and I both like Dwayne. I think we're hopeful that he can turn things around, but I don't know that he's going to get healthy. And I don't know that he's going to have the kind of time necessary in order to get healthy unless you go to Orlando Robinson and play him regularly. Why not? You've got him on the roster.
Interesting.
Let him continue to get the experience because let's say Dedmon breaks down a game again later on in the season. Now you've got somebody with a little bit more experience who's been a little bit more tested. And I think it works. Like the reason like small ball has worked historically over the last decade or so of Heat basketball is because it is a change of pace. Right now, Miami with Bam at center always plays some variation of small ball. So when you take him out and you put Dedmon in there and you have this ineffective, hurt, plotting type center, it's not very good basketball. It hasn't been very smooth. At the very least, we've got somebody that's a step above Dedmon, not a very high bar perhaps, but a step above Dedmon in terms of athleticism and presents the same way that Dedmon does in a pick and roll situation with Victor Oladipo. I was talking to you before we started recording. I like the pairing of Robinson and Oladipo because Oladipo has that comfort level with Dedmon. And again, Robinson presents as a big body, somebody who takes up space. He rolls well in the pick and roll situation. He has good hands, catches the ball with ease, and is at least able to put up a nice shot at the rim. And it's something that Miami is lacking. They don't have that kind of size option at any point with Bam out on the floor. That's just not the strength of Bam's game. Bam does many, many other things well. That's just not him.
Yeah.
He's in terms of a slower pick and roll, you need somebody like Dedmon at his peak or what we're seeing from Robinson tonight. And I think that's an option for Miami moving forward. I don't know that he replaces it altogether. This is kind of moot because I think Yurtseven is a good combination of both of those things. Yurtseven, a guy who can shoot from the perimeter, can't shoot for the mid-range, and does also show as a big body with enough size and athleticism to get to the rim. So they're all kind of holding the fort down until Yurtseven returns, if and when he returns at full strength. But in the meantime, if you're not going to count on Yurtseven because he's not going to be available for another month or so, and you don't know where you're going to get from Dedmon down the road, why not continue to go to Robinson while he's on the roster?
That's the most important point probably is we don't know when Omer Yurtseven is going to come back, and this was probably going to be his job is the backup center. I think Dwayne Dedmon was supposed to and was going to see minutes early on too, and they might have split those backup center minutes. You might have seen Omer Yurtseven playing with Bam Adebayo in the front court, and then when they shift away from that, Dedmon gets some minutes filling in while you're spelling those two, whatever. The fact of the matter is that we don't know when or if Omer Yurtseven is going to play this season. We have no real information on that. So I actually like the Dwayne Dedmon take there. We just saw the Heat do this with Gabe Vincent. Eric Spoelstra saying before the game, hey, Gabe was probably ready to go. He was out for a few games. He played 2 games, and then we rested him a lot again because we just didn't want this knee thing to be a recurring injury for him. We didn't want it to nag him throughout the whole season. We wanted to make sure, by May, April, this time of the year, that this wasn't an issue anymore with the knee with Gabe Vincent. So let's just rest him for 10 games or 9 games really, and then just try to get him as fresh as possible. I think that might be a good approach with Dwayne Dedmon in that, hey, let's just sit this guy and not rush him back. And Spo said, the approach with Gabe Vincent, he thinks it was the right one. Did Miami struggle without a point guard off the bench? Yeah, they did. But the drop off between Gabe Vincent and what was there, that's going to be a bigger drop off between Dwayne Dedmon and Orlando Robinson. Orlando Robinson is an adequate fill-in right now for what it is that Dwayne Dedmon does when you do want to go bigger and you do want to go to that, obviously when Bam needs a break. So I'm okay with it. If you want to just say, you know what, Orlando, or you know what, Dwayne, take the next month off. We've got Orlando Robinson here. The one issue with it is the fact that Orlando Robinson is on a two-way contract. So I haven't done the math to figure out, okay, do you have the days remaining that you need in order to facilitate something like this, a plan like that for Dwayne Dedmon? But if you can do it, I say do it, because I still believe at the end of the day, if it's the postseason, I just trust Dwayne Dedmon a lot more in a playoff game than I do Orlando Robinson, simply because Orlando Robinson's never been there. And I know that Dwayne Dedmon has been there. And I know that and regardless of what I think, I know Eric Spoelstra feels that way, because he's always going to lean veteran over a young guy who's unproven. So, as most coaches would. So yeah, I think that's a great idea. Just, hey, Dwayne, take a month off, man. Get this knee right, get the foot right, get your whole lower body right. We've got Orlando Robinson in the meantime holding the fort. I like it.
In terms of what you just said regarding drop off, like you can function without a backup point guard, as Miami has, because you have other ball handlers who do a decent job, or you can extend Kyle's minutes and things of that sort.
Stagger Tyler Herro the way they did, yeah.
But without a backup center, and again, in today's NBA, in any era of basketball, you just need size. Like Miami, we've seen them killed so often in the rebounding edge. They get crushed in the paint. They give up a lot of points in the paint on occasion. Like those moments where they've struggled the most, a lot of it has been due to either lack of three-point shooting or lack of size, or a combination of both. And we've seen that too often. So you need,
and they don't even have that they don't even have that wacky PJ Tucker option, right? They don't. You're not playing Caleb Martin or Jimmy Butler at center. I know they've experimented with Haywood Highsmith or Jamal Cain, but please, we don't need to see that anymore. Like that's not a real functional option for this team. Not even like a Nick Batum, who's like 6'9", something like that, wacky thing that the Clippers will do sometimes at center. They just don't have the other option.
Right. And look, Batum works because who do you start? You start a 7-footer in Zubac. Like again, it's about versatility, about optionality.
Good point.
Different lineups, different looks to throw your opponent.
Really hard to just stay small the entire game. Even the Warriors, who are like, hey, we got Draymond Green at center, they don't start games there because they like the optionality. To your point. So look, I'm with it. I think Orlando Robinson has certainly done enough, at least in the short term, to earn some minutes. He probably will. Dwayne Dedmon, he's not healthy now. I don't know when he's going to be. So
let's look ahead. Look to the Lakers, right? I mean, they have a small lineup. No Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
They starting Thomas Bryant at center.
Thomas Bryant right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I think. I mean, Bam hopefully will be back, assuming he is. Then that should be a lineup matchup that he can dominate. But they don't have a backup center, right? Who are they playing? Gabriel?
They have some Wayne Gabriel minutes. Who knows who's available for the Lakers anymore at any point.
Right,
but
it's tough.
I know they had Damian Jones, but he's sort of been out of the rotation for them. Yeah, I'm with you. Like Orlando Robinson, he's going to see minutes probably on Wednesday against the Lakers. I don't know, something to look forward to if you're a Heat fan. Watch if LeBron plays Tuesday night in Orlando. The Lakers are going to be on a back-to-back in Orlando Tuesday, in Miami Wednesday. LeBron's probably only going to play one of those games, I would imagine. Which one does he play? Does he try to play back in Miami, where obviously he played for 4 years? Or does he say, you know what, let's just get this Orlando win, and then I'll set that second night back-to-back in Miami? Logically, it makes sense to just play the Orlando game, but given that they played on Christmas, maybe you want a couple of nights off. Maybe if you're LeBron, maybe you say, you know, give me the extra day off in between games, and then I'll play the second night of the back-to-back. And I do think a part of LeBron likes the entertainment factor of it, playing in Miami. I know it doesn't really matter because it's been like 10 years since he played in Miami, but
he sat out a lot of games when he came back with Cleveland and stuff like that. I mean, I remember him sitting out a bunch, so I wouldn't be surprised if he sits out against Miami on Wednesday, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, we'll find out. Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Remember to subscribe to new episodes of Locked On Heat on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Ring the bell to get notified as soon as new episodes go up. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. It's the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. It's available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. Well, we got a few more days left in the year. We are so close to getting to 5,000 YouTube subscribers. So if you're listening to this and you are not subscribed, just hit that button. Help us out. Subscribe. Locked On Heat. Thanks for joining us. And thanks for joining me, David.
You got it, Wes.